Welcome to the Career Menace podcast. I am your host, Nisar Ahmed. I am the founder and editor of the blog CareerMenace.com, and this is episode 30 of the Career Menace podcast. And this episode is part of the Expert series, where I interview career experts, career professionals, to share their wisdom to help today's job seekers to navigate the world of job search to land their dream job. And for today's Career Expert Series episode, I'm interviewing career coach and published author Brian Howard from themotivatedjobsearch.com. Brian, welcome to the podcast.
Pleasure to be here.
So, Brian, what I would like to start off, I think it would not do justice if I do your introduction. You have a wonderful blog, you have a few books. What I would like to do for the benefit of the audience is, if you can quickly give a high-level introduction about yourself, who you are, and also your journey in the world of a career coach or career professional.
Yeah. The name is Brian Howard, and for the last 24 years, I've been an executive recruiter. And along with that comes getting into the career coaching and the career transition coaching. I am a certified career management coach, certified job search specialist, certified professional resume writer, and like you said, I am the author of the Motivated Job Search books. Now these books, it's a series. It's a series of 6. They are going to be released incrementally in 6-month increments. Now, 2 of them have already been released. One of them is the Motivated Job Search. That is a book that was released in the spring. It's designed for career-minded professionals who want simple and direct answers on how to conduct a job search. The second book, which has also been released, is the Motivated Networker. It takes a deep dive into the topic of networking to find a job. Now, the other books have not been released yet, but they include Over 50 and Motivated. Now, that's a job search book for job seekers over 50 because the dynamics of a job search change. That'll be released in the spring of 2017. Simultaneously, there is the Motivated Job Search Workbook. The workbook has thought-provoking questions, writing space, and it runs and correlates directly with the Motivated Job Search book and Over 50. So that workbook can work with both of the job search books. Then in the fall of 2017 comes Motivated Resumes. That is a resume book. It is a how-to. The cool part about the book is that I collaborated with, I think there were 14 experienced, credentialed, and award-winning resume writers who shared their insight and experience, their line of thinking on how they build resumes. And along with that comes like 80 or 85, sample resumes, traditional formats of all kinds, and even infographics. And then finally, and this will be in the spring of 2018, the final book, which actually I'm writing right now, is the Motivated Job Interview. And that takes a deep dive into the actual interview setting and all of the things that go along with that, because that's really where the rubber meets the road. You get all the way there, now you got to interview, you got to talk to somebody. How can you persuade them? Yeah. Now the journey to all of this, how did I get there? Is when you're a recruiter, and if you're a good one, you learn or intuitively become, or you read up on how to coach and help your candidates do well. And I have done that for many, many years. all part and parcel with, my recruiting activities. Okay, and over the course of time, as I would talk to people, I would get into those things that, what are you doing on your own if they were unemployed or actively looking. And as I would start to pull back the layers of the onion, I would I'd shake my head and wonder, you're just not being effective. And that was one of the motivations to writing the books, because I quickly discovered that in many cases, it would take me almost a 2-day seminar to unravel what they were doing and the missed opportunities and not understanding how to effectively conduct a job search efficiently. And that's when I decided that I'd go ahead and get some of the certifications that were really built for credibility beyond all the things that I had learned and read and studied, as a recruiter. And it's been the recruiting part for me is a very fulfilling, professionally and personally fulfilling career. And now being able to do the coaching in a different style, along with the books and the things like that, has just been it's been a blast. It really has. It's really been a blast.
I'm just listening to your introduction. Thanks for sharing that. I mean, I think what you've done with your books, what you're planning to do, what you're doing is you're covering all aspects of the job search, right? Job search, networking, resume. So, I mean, it's exciting to see a series of books that'll be really useful. And going back to your career as a recruiter, I think being a recruiter, one of the advantages you might have, Brian, is you see candidates, you see some of the areas that they're doing very well, and especially the areas that many of them are not doing well, right? And I think that's an advantage that gives you sort of like an inside scoop, like an insider knowledge, because a lot of the times job seekers do not know this.
Oh, you're right, and it's perfectly and completely understandable. I mean, I tell them, I said, many people come to me, and it's in one or two situations, and there are others, but I want to know how to do this right the first time. That's kind of where they're at. They're kind of at the beginning, and they're smart enough to know that this is something different. And then you have those that have started it and are stumbling, and they need to restart, and they're frustrated and everything. But the point is this: this is something different that they don't do. They've been doing their real job. Now all of a sudden they find themselves in a situation where they almost have to learn a new job so they can get a job. And that's completely normal, completely understandable, because they've been out doing that which they've been trained for, that which they love, I hope, and doing those things. Then all of a sudden they find themselves in this situation where they have to sometimes either refresh themselves or learn a new skill to get them back employed. So to your point, yeah, I do see it from many different angles, because I interact with people all the time, and it's all about job search.
Mm-hmm. So, Brian, I mean, you have a lot of knowledge and experience, so we'll definitely get into that. I think we can get, for the next 20 to 30 minutes, we can gain a lot of insights. Before we begin, one question I wanted to ask is, where are you calling from? Which city are you calling from, Brian?
Oh, I'm in the Kansas City, Missouri area. There's a suburb of Overland Park, which is in the southwest quadrant of the metro area. Yeah.
Perfect. And for those of us who have not heard about Kansas, I think almost everyone knows a little bit about Kansas. I'm in Toronto, so the way I know about Kansas is last year for the MLB playoffs, the Toronto Blue Jays lost to Kansas Royals. So so anybody in Toronto knows. But for those people listening to this who do not know about Kansas, would you mind sharing some interesting fact or something that most people do not know about Kansas?
Well, we're a flyover state. Okay, that means we're not on either coast. We're about dead middle of the United States as you can get. Okay. And, the most recent claim to fame is the Kansas City Royals baseball team won the World Series in 2015 and have successfully gotten eliminated from the playoffs in 2016. So we will not be seeing baseball in October.
All right, so let's get into the questions. So in your introduction, you talked about some of the challenges job seekers have. So I wanted to ask you, in your experience, what are some of the biggest challenges, other than the fact that it is new to them? What are some of the challenges that job seekers come to you for?
Well, most of it is to start off right and to resurrect the stale job search. I mean, the biggest challenges, the biggest mistake, and this really flows into challenges, but also mistakes that people make when they get into a job search. And honestly, the first one that I seem to encounter with a fair amount of regularity is that people tend to underestimate the amount of time and the level of effort that it takes to conduct a job search. Too many of them believe that, a quick put together resume, maybe a LinkedIn profile, get out there, talk to some folks and everything like that, boom, a job's going to be there. That often isn't the case. And then when you have economic environment, circumstances and that dynamic in play, it can really throw you off. So, the biggest, or one of the biggest, I should say, is that there's a lack of appreciation of the amount of physical effort, mental effort that it takes to do this well. And they also get into, a little bit too much of a shotgun. They don't have a reasonably tight focus on the kinds of companies and the kinds of positions that they would be interested in. Now, you got to be careful there, because you've got to be able to flex a little bit. Sometimes you may not have thought of something and it comes your way. But then again, there are times when you run across something, it sounds interesting, but is it really something that you're qualified? Is it really something that you're interested in? And that's when you kind of get into the concept of, are you chasing a job or pursuing a career, your career position? And that can be tough, okay? Because let's say you're unemployed, okay? There's a job. I might get it. But I always caution the candidates I work with about that, because, it could be a short-term gig. It may be what you need for the short term. Money and the need for money trumps all. If you have to have a job to make the mortgage and whatever, you have to take that into consideration. But oftentimes, that could be a short-term gig. You could be miserable, and then you're back at it again. But then again, you might have a paycheck. I mean, it can get really dicey getting into that. You know what I'm saying? And then there's, then you get into the candidates that mostly out of frustration, their job search just kind of degrades and just kind of falls apart, and all of they're doing is waking up every morning or every other morning and looking at job boards and things of that nature. Now, I'm not saying that those activities are not, or that activity is not important. It can be, okay? But you can't rely on it. And once you're reliant upon that, you're probably in deep trouble. I read not long ago, and it just makes complete sense in light of the experiences I've had with people, that the probability that you land a job based on an advertisement or a posting is about 1 in 118. That ain't too good. Okay? Now,
So, Brian, can you clarify that when you say 1 out of 118, what do you mean? Like, you mean applying for 118 jobs and you get one job? Yeah. Is that? Oh, okay.
Yeah, you could look at it that way. Your chances are less than 1%.
Wow.
Okay? Yeah. Wow. Now, are there exceptions? Sure, there's an exception to everything. You may be highly qualified in the technical world and have a special knowledge of a certain software that's in high demand, and all you have to do is do some point and click, and recruiters are calling you. All right, great. You're sitting in the catbird seat, okay? But when you take it out over the entire industry, all industries and everything, it's about what you come up with, and that's tough odds. Now, like I say, now, should you abandon that? No, you don't, okay? But what you have to do is you have to be strategic about it, okay? You set up job alerts, okay? And you can do that, LinkedIn has them and others do, okay? And you're finite. Indeed.com is perfect. And you set up, 5 or 6 of them, and they are specific to what you're looking for. And then when they do pop up, you can examine them. And then, as a matter of strategy, what I tell people, I say, okay, look, if you get one and it looks good, you fit, okay? Try finding out and contacting the person that would likely be the executive that would hire you. Make that direct contact first. See if you can work it that way. Yeah, you'll probably get kicked HR, fine. That's okay. But if you can say, I spoke to, Susan, the director of client management, and she suggested I talk to you or reply to you through this, there's just something added to that concept rather than always going through HR. Okay? Yeah, and that's a strategy thing. That's a strategy play. Obviously, we get into not being fully aware of how to differentiate yourself. You got to stand out, and that gets into how do you do that? How do you stand out? How can you make yourself different compared to others? And because the market can be kind of rough out there. And
Brian,
yes, sir.
Sorry to interject. Actually, that is a great segue, aware of how to differentiate yourself. I think now we talked about the challenges, so I want to get into a deeper discussion of how to differentiate yourself. But before that, I wanted to ask you. I think this might be a good question to talk about. You mentioned the word frustration a couple of times when you were talking about challenges, and I think it's common. I've been there. Everybody listening to this has been there. So before you start any strategy, are there some things you would suggest in terms of mindset or how to manage your emotions? Is that part of a strategy you recommend as well?
Oh, yeah, you have to. You got to go in. First of all, understand it's going to take longer. Okay? Set your expectation there. Okay? And it becomes very easy for someone to get frustrated, to get down, and emotionally. And there are some things. There's one thing that I like to tell people who are really, they're struggling. Okay? And that's the concept of a gratitude list. Okay? And you just go to a quiet place and you get out a piece of paper and you start writing down all of the things in life, big and small, that you are thankful for, that you are blessed to have. I have a great mom who loves me, even if you're 45 years old. My son is a good baseball player. Okay? Start listening. Nothing's too small. Generally, what I hear when people do that is it lifts their spirits. It's you have good things. You have a challenge and a struggle right now. Okay, we know that. But there are a lot of things in your life that you can be happy about, blessed about, feel good about. And you can't forget those things. People tell me that after they've done this exercise, they feel better about themselves. They get energized about themselves. I also recommend on the emotional thing that since they have time, if they're unemployed and if they have some time, okay, that they pursue a substantive professional designation, okay? And it has to have it's got to have some material to it. It's just not a 2-day seminar where you get a certificate of achievement. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that thing that takes, 3 weeks or 3 months or 6 months. Start and make it in the area that you want to be. Okay, here's why this works. 2 things. One is that people tell me that it fires their brain up. It gets that gray matter going. It gets you moving more forward. It gets your thoughts on your designation, on the things that are in this industry of yours. And it brings you up to speed. And it gets you off of just job search, but also into that. And it's also a differentiator. When you get into conversations with people, you can tell them, I'm currently pursuing my GBA designation. You can say that in interviews. Now you have something that you can mention, that you're not just being a bump on the log while you're unemployed. And it makes your attitude better that you're working towards something along with your job search. Those two things tend to move somebody emotionally forward, and that they're not stuck, because that's where they're at. All they want to think about is the fact, I don't have a job, I am worried, my spouse might be starting to be worried, and all of those things. No, if you can start to move yourself forward emotionally and doing an activity that can help differentiate you as well as keep you in the game intellectually with your career, you're doing the right things.
Brian, I really like that suggestion, because as you were talking about the professional designation, I was thinking about, I was reading somewhere that humans are usually motivated by trying a new challenging goal. Of course, when you're trying to get, let's say a designation, you're trying to rebuild yourself. It automatically improves your motivation, right?
I would agree.
Yeah. And at the same time, when you're speaking to someone, let's say your potential hiring manager, I would say they'll be more than impressed that this candidate, in spite of the challenge or setback, he or she is trying to improve. So that's something it shows initiative. So that's a very good point. That's very new. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. Now we talked about the mindset and how you can fix that. So let's get into strategies, or you were talking about how to differentiate yourself.
Yeah.
So I mean, instead of me asking you, I think I'm getting a lot of great insights here. So I'll just keep it open-ended and ask you, if I was a candidate who just got laid off and I'm looking for a job, and how do I make myself stand out compared to everyone else like me?
Okay. There's a lot of components, in my opinion, that go into creating the differentiation, and there are several. Okay, and to be perfectly blunt, without being promotional here, that is the driving force behind the Motivated Job Search book. It is literally subtitled a proven system to help you stand out, because you have to know the process, okay? But now you got to be just that 1 degree piece of separation, that 1 degree of separation from the next person. All right, now let's start kind of from the basic stuff. You have to get your arms and your mind around this concept of branding, and you're going, what? Okay, well, here's the thing, okay? When it comes to branding, okay, it's a marketing concept, okay? It is answering the question, who are you professionally? And what is your value proposition? And for some people, that is a foreign concept. I'm a sales guy, or I'm an engineer. Okay, well, yeah, but what else? I mean, what is it about you? There's a beautiful little formula that, I seldom claim to have truly original thoughts, but it works so well, and I came up with this, it's, okay, give me your function. What are you? Okay, I'm a sales professional. Okay, fine. What are you good at? And I'm not talking about necessarily, the soft skills initially. I'll get to those. But product, service, things like that. So you're a sales professional specializing in workers' compensation, utilization review, all of those things, okay? That turns and starts to grab and get into this concept of branding. What are you as a professional, so that I can recognize as a hiring manager who I'm looking at, talking to on the other side of the desk, or, online with LinkedIn. This gets right into the LinkedIn too. But other things that you have to be able to have to differentiate yourself, and that is success stories. A lot of times, candidates will get out there and they've done a function. Well, that's great, okay? But tell me if you're any good at it. Give me something, and I'm talking as a hiring manager here, that I can hang my hat on that tells me that not only do you do that, but you're good at it. So give me some success stories. Give me something where you came in under budget. Give me something where you, something new, that you had an award from it, an accolade, a recommendation. You can get into client endorsements, anything that has numbers, percentages, and things of achievement that demonstrate that you succeeded at what you were doing. And all of this, kind of comes in, and then you have to have this elevator speech. Now, what's an elevator speech? Okay, you've heard about them, but it's that 30 to 60 second verbal advertisement, and it encapsulates, what your value, what your branding is, what you are, that your achievements, and that you're looking for an opportunity with an organization that needs this or things of that nature. And a lot of times I find that, candidates, they know their elevator speech, perhaps, maybe, for the company they work for, but they don't have one for themselves. And it's like, you should. You have to. When you go into a job search, you got to be able to tell somebody about you. And then sometimes you get into some of the little things, like, well, you got to have a business card. Well, the business card you had at your former employer ain't going to work. Okay, you're not there anymore. So go spend $100, $150. Okay, yeah, you can do it yourself, but I'd rather you do it, have it professionally done, at a store, and do more than just a business card with your contact information. Do something that's a little bit more like a resume business card, which you can put your branding statement on there. You can put a couple of achievements on the back, things that you can hand out to make you memorable to the people you interact with and when you network with. And then you get into some very cool differentiators, like a brag book, okay? Prepare a brag book. Well, what is it? Well, you put your resume in it, okay? But then you start putting other information like, documented awards, testimonials from your peers, from your bosses, anything that makes you distinctive, that provides proof of what you're capable of doing. You can put in there what's called a testimonial sheet. That can be very persuasive. I had a candidate here not long ago that sent one to me voluntarily, and it was like 3 pages long, and it was nothing but quotes from people talking about her in glowing terms, and named them, who said it, and their title. Very persuasive stuff. Put that in a brag book or use that independently. That will make you different. You get into a career summary sheet. Now, that's a different concept. It's kind of like a resume, but it is used, the way I use it, when you know what the hiring manager is looking for. You know what the company is looking for, okay? This is one of those second interview techniques, okay? And you create this career summary sheet, and you kind of lay out your career, and you style it right into the needs of that particular employer, selling your background, experience, your knowledge right into them, okay? And it's from a full career standpoint. It could be a very persuasive. There's an example of one in the Motivated Job Search as a testimonial sheet as well. And then you get into something that can be really good, and that's an action plan. That's a 30, 60, 90, maybe 100-day plan. And you use that obviously more at the end of the interviewing process and say, look, here's what I'm thinking, okay? And I'm not operating with full information because, I don't have all the information. But as I'm thinking about it, here's how I would attack this position. Who does those things? See, when you start doing things like a brag book or a testimonial sheet or a career summary sheet or an action plan and some of these other things, all of a sudden, small positive thoughts in the mind of the employer start to pile up on themselves. Now you're creating that separation. Now you're creating that differentiation from other candidates who aren't doing these things. Now you're standing out. I just talked a lot.
No, that's great. No, that's amazing, because the concept of having a business card and success stories and 30, 60, 90-day plans, I don't think a lot of candidates, hey, listen, I talk about this, I write about this. I haven't done a lot of that in the past as well. So I always love new and fresh ideas. So it's perfect. So on the topic of differentiation, Brian, I think you dropped LinkedIn a couple of times.
Yeah.
All of this advice you gave so far, I mean, this is great, and like, you're in front of someone, you're doing in the interview process. But let's take a couple of steps back. I mean, you're very active on LinkedIn. I mean, even your website talks a lot about LinkedIn. Can you tell us a little bit how LinkedIn helps with branding?
Yeah, here's the thing. A lot of people underestimate the leverage and the power of LinkedIn. Okay? It wasn't all that many years ago, frankly, that I used to think, okay, you're starting a job search, first item of business, got to get that resume up and running. I don't say that anymore. First item of business, number one at the top, okay, is get your LinkedIn profile up to grade, okay? Because that's where HR recruiters find you. That's where hiring executives and HR recruiters look the minute they become aware of you. And it's got to be optimized. Okay, now, I just used a word, optimization. I mean, it's a term of art. Let me tell you how I define it, okay? Optimizing your LinkedIn profile is using the algorithms and the programming of LinkedIn to become findable, discoverable when someone goes to look for you for what you want to be known for or found for. Okay? And once you kind of have your arms and your mind wrapped around that, there are elements of optimization that you have to be aware of, and one is keywords. The programming looks for men. To appear matter, and the number of times that they appear matter. And knowing that kind of stuff, really can shoot your score up. And what I mean by that is when somebody goes to look for you, you want to be on the first page, right? Or second page, or no worse than the third page. Correct? All right. So
correct.
When you start to have those in the keywords and the number of times and where they're located, that helps. You also get into the concept of completeness. Okay? That will help you rise to the top when somebody goes to look for you or find you. Okay? And that means filling out the information that is available, all those boxes, provided it's substantive. Okay? And when I talk about substantive, I often, when I work with my candidates, I use this example. Standing behind the card table at the Cub Scouts selling brownies is not what I'm talking about. Now, if you happen to be a rapid response person for the Red Cross, that's what I'm talking about. Okay? It has to have some substance to it. The one that, I'll be honest with you, the one that always makes me cringe is when I'm talking to somebody here in the United States and they put down English as their language. Well, it's kind of assumed. It's there more for like Italian or Spanish and your level of proficiency, not your native tongue. Okay, but but the point is, you have to. The more complete your profile and things like that, the better you're going to score. And then the final component, when you start thinking about LinkedIn, is compelling. Is it compelling? And what do I mean by that? Are you intellectually or emotionally moving, dare say motivating, the reader to reach out to you. That's the ultimate point. Okay? Now, that could be based on what you know. Okay, that is often the case in the technology world. Okay? What you know can be compelling. What you achieved is compelling. Things that make you stand out is making you a candidate of choice. Makes it compelling. And the more you read those things in there with the keywords in the right places and the achievements and the completeness and all those things, when you start to piece it all together and tackle it, all of a sudden you can now leverage LinkedIn to your advantage. And a lot of candidates don't. I will be perfectly honest with you. I think it's clearly my most requested coaching session is LinkedIn optimization. And I go into the details on how to make that work for you. Because part of it is being found. And the beautiful part about it, when it's all done and you have a job, what you have there works beautifully for your career and for business. Because when somebody may look you up for a business reason or just one, there it is, and it works hand in glove. Just wonderful.
That sounds great. When it comes to LinkedIn, I think since we are spending a lot of time on the concept of branding, it is becoming sort of the ultimate branding tool, right? It's your virtual branding. All your information is there, and the more complete and attractive it looks, the more they reach out to you instead of them reaching out to you, you reaching out to them. So that's the huge advantage of LinkedIn. And someone like me who uses LinkedIn a lot, I totally agree with everything you've mentioned so far.
Yeah, the one little thing about LinkedIn that I tell people is that that headline area, that space right underneath your name, is vitally important, and you have to structure that correctly because it really can function honestly as the cornerstone, the foundation to the entire job search. What are you? Tell me what your value proposition is. And from that, other things flow. And then you got to have the resume, and the resume has to correlate very tightly to the LinkedIn profile, especially when it comes to dates. For some reason, HR people get really uncomfortable when the dates don't line up, and oftentimes it's just an oversight. But that's just has to be there. Double check it. Mm-hmm.
That sounds great. So we've covered quite a few ground here, Brian. We talked about some of the challenges, how to be strategic, how to fix your mindset, and we spent a lot of time on branding. So we are coming towards the end of our segment here. I think there's a lot of valuable, unique insights you have given. So after listening to this, if the listeners wanted to reach out to you and get more information, what are some of the best ways to reach you?
Yeah. First of all, you can reach me through themotivatedjobsearch.com. The web address, my email address is brian.howard@themotivatedjobsearch.com. And obviously, you can look me up on LinkedIn.
Perfect. So, Brian, thanks for sharing lots of great insights. I like some of the new ideas you have brought up. One thing that really stood out for me, Brian, is getting the professional designation. I think, that's as you were saying, I'm writing down some of the ideas that I should pursue, even though whether I'm unemployed or not or employed, I think it's really important. It makes you more marketable. It improves your skill set. So that is one thing I got out of this. So for sure, among other things. So before we conclude, are there any last words? Is there anything that you think we should add to what we discussed so far?
Well, I might launch into a smaller topic, but I do want to mention this because it gets really important, and that gets into the mind frame of a hiring manager, because a lot of times people overlook what's going on in the brain on that person on the other side of the phone, on the other side of the desk. And I'll be really, really quick with this. They've got 5 questions that they need to have answered, okay? The first one is, can you do the job? Simple enough. We're talking about skills and experience to actually perform the function of the position. The second one is, will you do the job? And this is motivated to actually perform the function. Excitement. Is there a sense of compassion and passion and drive to do that function? Here comes one that's important. Will your performance have a positive impact on company goals? Okay, now that's where they get into something substantive, and oftentimes the answer is going to be yes, but it's going to be a comparison between you and the other person, okay? And you have to have the perceived deeper value. Next, do you fit in culturally? I mean, are you our kind of person? And if all of those are answered in the affirmative, then we get into the final one, which is, can I afford this person? Okay? If you go into an interview with just a sentence, you don't even have to know those questions specifically, but if you remember those in your brain and you can hit on them and answer them and get into them, you're winning. You're winning. Okay, I got off on something that you didn't ask, but I did want to put that in there because I think that's important, is understanding not only what you're doing, we talked a lot about that, but how they think.
That's very valuable. I mean, thanks for, I think that's very insightful, because that's not something that most job seekers usually think about. They're always thinking about how do I do very well, but what is the other person thinking? Right. So that's exciting. Thanks for sharing that.
No problem.
So Brian, thanks for joining us. Once again, I wanted to thank you for your time. Lots of great ideas. It was a pleasure to listen to some of your insights. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, folks, for listening to this episode of the Career Matters podcast. I have written a brief summary of the interview with Brian, and will be published along with this interview. If you liked what you heard, feel free to subscribe to the Career Matters podcast on iTunes. If you enjoyed this episode and also learned something new, feel free to post a comment or a review. And if you really loved it, definitely go ahead and share this episode with your network. Until next time, this is your host, Nisar Ahmed, for the Career Matters podcast. Thank you.